Just about time for love to begin. Just about trouble they'll stumble in. From Nailstone streets to dreams out loud, they're just about lost and just about found.
It's loves and tears, life turns about. In our story, just about.
Still, just about 10 years ago. It had been another ordinary Monday for Karen. Early finish from college, back home to get a bit of work done. Quick bath, get the evening meal ready for the family and eat. However, this Monday, Sue, her friend from college, was coming over from the other side of the town for the evening. She wasn't sure what they would do. They couldn't go to any of the local pubs for fear of someone telling her dad. At 17, she and Sue could easily pass for 18 or more, especially with some carefully applied makeup, or war paint, as her dad insisted on calling it. But Nailstone was a small area, and there would be sure to be someone in any pub they went in who knew her and who would get back to her dad. Besides, she'd spent all the money from her Saturday's job and a bit more besides this week on a new dress for the end of the year summer ball at college, and was broke. Karen sort of assumed in her mind that they would stay in, play some music and generally enjoy girly chat. If she spoke nicely to her father, he may run Sue home, meaning they wouldn't have to be tied to bus timetables, and Sue wouldn't need to run around Brinton bus depot to catch a connection home. Sue had a bit of a phobia about that particular place, and had often told the story why. How one night last summer, whilst dashing between buses, she had dropped her bag and spilt its contents over the depot floor, causing her to have to chase coins and other things around the floor and under buses. She claimed that, just when she thought that she had retrieved everything, she had spotted her spare knickers, a pair of which she always carried in her bag, being transported between the row of buses by a young male bus driver, who had picked them up for her as they had blown around the depot for the world and his wife to see. Karen was never sure how much of this story was true and how much was comic embellishment. What was certain was that the story got longer and more elaborate every time she heard it. Sue didn't often venture over to Nailstone, which was basically an industrial village sitting at the south end of the town of Brinton, except when she visited Karen. Except to go to college, she rarely strayed from her own village at Sadbury Hill, which sat to the north of Brinton. Sadbury Hill had its history in mining, now long since abandoned, after Mrs. Thatcher and her lot had run a sword through the heart of the mining community in Britain. Something her dad, a staunch Labour supporter, never failed to remind anyone who would listen. She and Karen had met last September at the start of the academic year, when they had both enrolled at Brinton Technical College on the same day. There had been very few females there that morning, and somehow she and Karen had been drawn to each other, and had hit it off straight away and now firm friends. They started the evening as Karen had expected, listening to music and exchanging bland chat about college courses and deadlines. As the evening progressed, however, Karen started talking about home and her family's recent past. Sue was very conscious that Karen didn't often talk about home at college, and very few of their friends were aware that she had lost her mom 4 years ago, when she was barely 13. Sue knew that Mrs. Wainwright had battled for several years against lung cancer, which eventually claimed her life. What she didn't understand until that evening in Karen's bedroom was that she had never stopped smoking, despite medical pressure and the effect that this had on her friend. As the warm July sun created patterns through the trees outside the windows, which in turn danced over the walls of Karen's bedroom, there seemed to be a newfound intimacy between the two girls. It was as if Karen, lulled by music and the hum of the bees outside the open window, had found a freedom to express feelings to which she rarely gave verbal utterances. The problem is, there was a gap, and Karen paused, appearing to wonder how much of this stuff she could trust to her friend. The problem is, she started again with a little more determination, as if the decision had been made. It feels so personal. What do you mean personal? Sue realised that she needed to be careful. There was something about Karen's attitude and body language that suggested she was about to say things she may never have said before, and in that brief moment, Sue wisely made the decision to let her talk and just encourage her with gentle words. It feels like she did it on purpose, you know. Carried on smoking, even when everyone told her to stop. It feels like she robbed me. Robbed you? Yes, robbed me. Of what? Gently, Sue, don't push it. Oh, of a mom, of a life, of independence, of normality. If she hadn't died, I wouldn't have ended up having to look after Dad and Ian. If If she hadn't died, I wouldn't look at other people with both parents and envy them. If she hadn't died, I'd have someone to share those special moments with. Exam results, boyfriends, highs and lows. But your dad tries. Oh, I know that, and he's been through so much too. But you know what they say, a girl needs a mum, and I lost mine before I had a chance to really find out. Dads are very good when your bike needs repairing or your bedroom needs decorating, but you can't talk to them about period pains or bra sizes as you grow, or how to handle over-enthusiastic boys who won't take no for an answer. I also resent the responsibility. How many 13-year-old girls do you know who are left with sorting out shopping, washing and cooking for their dad and 11-year-old brother? At first all the aunts came around to help, but it wasn't long before the novelty wore off and it was just left to good old Karen. She's so grown up, she's a born housewife, until one by one they all just left it to us, and it was never open for debate that the girl of the house would sort it. Your dad helps though sometimes, doesn't he? Oh yes, he does his shopping. We have to tell him what to buy, and he and Ian do a lot of the cleaning, but most of the washing and ironing's down to me, as well as the cooking, as well as college work, as well as working Saturdays. Just when am I meant to have a life? This latest diatribe gradually became more and more garbled and watery, as Karen collapsed into her friend's arms in great sobs that seemed to well so deep that Sue found herself amusing in a moment of shocking flippancy whether she was dredging tears from the very tips of her toes. As the sobs slowly subdued, Karen became more like her old self and, looking a little sheepish, said, "I'm sorry about that. I don't know what came over me. I don't usually go around telling people all my personal woes." "Don't worry me, old mate," Sue said, feeling that perhaps she was being a little too jolly in the circumstances. But she really didn't know how to handle this mother confessor role she'd been thrust into. "I know. Let's go for a walk and clear the cobwebs. I don't really know Nailstone. You can show me all the sights." "You got 5 minutes to spare then," said Karen, with more levity than she felt. Some 10 minutes later, wandering through one of the few main roads in Nailstone, Karen said to Sue, "Don't look now, but we're being followed." "Who do you think you are?" said Sue. "Some star of a second-rate thriller?" Things had settled back to normal as they had walked, and Karen appeared to return to her old self, the one Sue recognised from college, chatty, relaxed, and generally good company. However, she had seen enough of her friend this evening to know there was more that made Karen tick than she had realised until now, and it made her slightly uneasy. Something had happened in the half hour or so in Karen's bedroom that had given a whole new dimension to their friendship, and while neither of them said so, they both acknowledged it. Sue resolved there and then that she would be there for her friend in future. "No, there are 2 lads following us. Pretend you've done something to your shoe and we can have a better look." "Karen Wainwright, are you suggesting we allow 2 boys we don't know to pick us up?" "Not exactly, but it wouldn't hurt to have a peep, would it?" There was a glint in Karen's eyes that Sue rightly interpreted as barely controlled recklessness. She had been at a low place earlier on that evening and appeared to have decided to take advantage of an unexpected situation and have a bit of fun tonight. Though how far that fun would go she didn't know, and she had to be honest enough with herself. She would admit to being a little worried about it. Nevertheless, despite her reservations, Sue did as she was told and pretended to stumble a little and stopped to look down at her shoe as if some major disaster akin to an earthquake had taken place in the locality of her left foot. The 2 girls then, under the guise of examining this life-shattering event, manoeuvred themselves to have a look at the 2 boys that Karen had spotted following them. From that peculiar vantage point, Sue and Karen saw 2 boys on the other side of the road, some 20 metres or so behind them. Similar ages to themselves, one tall and gangly, the other not as tall as his partner in crime, and if truth be told, a little podger, though only someone cruel would have used the word fat to describe him. The boys had stopped to look in a shop window. "How do you know they're interested in us?" Sue said, taking the vista from what was virtually an upside-down stance. "I don't, but it seems a bit of a coincidence. Every time we've stopped or slowed down in the last 5 minutes, they have to." "Well, I can't stay in this position much longer. My back's beginning to ache, and if I bend much further, I'm in danger of flashing my knickers. Quite apart from the fact, you have to ask what can be so wrong with a shoe that two people spend half an hour examining it." "Hardly half an hour. It's probably less than half a minute. But it feels like that." "I know," said Karen. "We can nip in the offie and get some sweets. Then if they're still hanging about, we'll know." "And then what?" "Oh, I don't know. We'll see." "Oh, very well thought out. We might be thinking of entertaining a couple of rapists, and your plan is to see." "Don't be so daft. We're in the middle of a public place." Besides, the smaller one looks quite cute. Oh, so we've made our choices already, have we? What happened to open debate, a democratic society and all that? Lay off, Sue, I was only saying. He looks cute anyway, the tall one would be towering over me. He's much more your size. Sue didn't really mind. She didn't consider herself the kind of girl to get picked up by strangers in the street anyway. So the debate felt academic. They'd probably come out of the off-licence and the boys would be further up the road. Besides, after the uncomfortable half hour they'd spent in Karen's bedroom, she was glad to see her friend smiling and speaking in a positive way again. Well, let's get on with it. Then I'm beginning to get a headache, crouched down here. With that, she straightened and led the way into the offing. What do you want? I'll buy. That's very good of you, said Karen. I'll have a bag of stick jaw. She said this whilst never completely taking her eyes away from the windows in the door. Not walked past yet. Left the off-licence a few minutes later. Karen with her toffee and Sue with a bag of mint humbugs. If she was to be honest with herself, she thought that these may come in handy from a fresh breath point of view, should a snog be called for, which she wasn't quite sure she fancied or not. Sure enough, as they emerged from the shop, the boys were directly over the road, leaning on the wall of the laundrette in what Karen assumed they considered to be cool. The girl stopped and pretended to be inspecting their purchase. Hello, darling, all right, from the other side of the road. Oh, please, said Sue, into her mint humbugs. Hello, darling, all right. Welcome to Women's Lib. Oh, he's probably nervous, said Karen, turning to walk along the road. Do you want a toffee? She said, holding out her bag to the shorter of the two boys. Sue found herself following slowly, realising too late that her mouth was open, not able to fully take in this positive, in-your-face attitude of her usually reserved friend. Yeah, thanks. Chris helped himself to a small piece of toffee, with an assortment of thoughts invading his mind at the moment in time. Don't have a big piece, it's greedy, and I don't want to stand here with a full gob trying to talk. I look a right prat. This coupled with the amazement that they had virtually made the first move. What do I say now? Can I have a big piece? Paul didn't go too subtle. Yeah, if you like, it's better for my figure anyway. You'll probably do me a favour. Chris knew what was coming. He winced as he heard his friend's next words. Your fig looks fine to me, all the curves in the right places. Chris summed up the situation quickly. He needed to say something. First of all, to shut his mate up before this girl had them both labelled as Neanderthals. Second, he couldn't just stand there, he had to say something, or look gormless. And last but by no means least, he'd already earmarked the smaller one, standing in front of them offering sweets, for himself, and he didn't want Paul to be making all the running with her. Excuse my pig, he's a friend, was the first unconvincing thing that came out of his mouth, seemingly bypassing his brain. Oh, it's okay, he's probably shy. What's your name? I'm Chris, he's Paul, and one thing he isn't is shy. I'm Karen, and this, said as Sue finally joined them after walking in what appeared to be a daze from the other side of the road, is Sue. Sue, this is Chris, and this is, Paul, said Paul. Paul, as previously recorded, wasn't always the quickest individual picking up vibes, but it was clear even to him that whatever happened during the rest of that evening, if he was going to get off with one of these lovelies, he wasn't going to be Karen. She and Chris were already walking up the road chatting together, and the fact that she couldn't remember his name after only 10 seconds of being told suggested that she had eyes and mind on something other than him. Never mind, the other one wasn't bad, even if there was an element of frosty knickers about her. Still, he was in no doubt that she would succumb to his charm by the time what was left of the night was over. Do you live round here? Nah. Somewhere near. As he said this, he slipped an arm round her waist. Sadbury Hill, she said, pushing his arm away again. Like foreign travel, do you? You got your passport with you? Despite herself, Sue laughed at this rather strange pushy lad and decided he was harmless enough, if a little full of himself. After all, Karen seemed to be involved in deep conversation with the other lad. Chris, was it? She may as well relax a little, and she and Karen could touch base later on about where to go next. She was aware that his arm was again strained around her waist. She took his hand, removed it, but kept hold of it. You can hold my hand if you behave yourself. Okay. Now tell me a bit about yourself. So he did.
It's laughs and tears, life turns about. In our story, just about.